Hey guys, hey, first of all, happy Cinco de Mayo. It is Monday, May 5th, 2025. It is about 7:45 a.m. And I wanted to come on here, give you this bit of a vlog as to what's been going on. And first of all, if you guys, in case you guys are curious, a little bit of an update on the dentist situation, or the post-dental situation. You can see that. Yeah, but basically, long story short, the healing process is going smoothly. I've been taking the medication they prescribed, which surprisingly, according to the bottle, has no refills needed or something like that. Now, I have to look over the paper again to see if maybe I do need to get refills, just in case. But apparently, it's no refills. Because one of the medicines, the Axiolum, Axiolum, if you will, the one that helps heal and treat bacteria, that one is down to one pill. I'm down to one pill on that. So obviously it's doing its job and everything, and I just gotta keep brushing around I gotta keep brushing, I should say, my teeth, so that way things are decent and everything, as well as use the alcoholic free Pronamel mouthwash to make sure that things are good and everything, and where the healing process is going as planned. The other one that I'm kind of running low on right now is the ibuprofen, which is the 800 milligram ibuprofen that they gave me for pain. And the difference between the two is the Axiolum, if you will, was was basically needed to be taken 3 times a day, without issue. It was needed to be taken 3 times a day without issue. No as needed kind of stuff like the ibuprofen. The ibuprofen was the kind that you need to take with food and everything, because it was 800 milligrams and everything, but it was as needed and for pain only. Now, thankfully, we do have other medicines outside of that allow me to ease any kind of pain that I might have in the future, when it comes to basically the bone, the readjusting of the bones and everything around, around the bone grafts and all that, and the screws and everything. Now, what's interesting though about this is the next time I go, and I guess kind of do a checkup on this, an update on this, that might be when I get my implants. Now, I've looked online and they say that's not possible unless because from what I'm reading, it all depends on the healing process and how healthy the gums are. And apparently, according to these dentists at Western Dental, my gums are pretty much healthy. They're very good. I have good oral health and everything. And that the teeth that are still there are strong. So to them, I'm assuming them putting that all into equation, and then realizing, well, all we had to do was extract and graft this and this, as well as this. But here's what's interesting: this side, he didn't suture up. He didn't suture up because basically it's not bothering me. But this side and this side, he did. So my thought process is based on what I've read online, is that there's a good chance, because the way they made it sound last week, before the procedure happened, is I'm probably going to get the implants probably very soon. That's why they scheduled me maybe almost a month after this one, because I went in on the 28th of April for the procedure and all that, and now this time around, on the 23rd of this month, which will be in 18 days, I'm going to basically go back not only for an update, as well as to sign the paperwork I need to contractually pay this off over time, which is going to be a long time, but it's going to be worth it. There's a good chance I'm also going to get my implants put in there as well. So that's kind of cool. Now, if I can get this thing paid off a lot sooner than planned and everything, that'd be great too. And that's why I'm going to need your guys' help as well through Patreon, Venmo, Cash App, And I might even start up memberships real soon too, depending on how much, the bill is going to be. And if I start up memberships, it'd be greatly appreciated if you guys can help me there in that department. But anyway, to get back on track though, over the past week, I've been slowly progressing back into sort of a normal diet, if you will. Not a regular diet, not like a regular normal routine, but mostly to where I can now eat things like, well, what they describe like mashed potatoes, softer meats, stuff like that. So, just, stuff that I could probably mix together and basically, swallow. Like chew a little bit on one side, not the side that has the extractions and all that, but mostly, gently chew and just swallow in the process. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool and everything. But with that said though, like I said, this past week has been more of a readjusting period and all that because, I'm sure anybody watching this has been through something like this in the past, no matter what their surgery has been, whether it's oral, bone or whatever. It takes time to get back to your normal routine because you're so used to doing certain things or eating certain ways that when that's taken away from you, it's basically like it's like a waiting period. Like today, I know in a few hours, at the time I'm recording this, within an hour or so, I'm gonna have my unemployment in the bank, my unemployment in my bank, very soon. And what that means, basically for me, later today, hopefully if things work out, is I can get a Metacrest 3S. To me, that's going to be like my reward to myself. That's going to be like, Brian, you went through this, you went through this when you should have done it a lot sooner. So guess what? Now you're going to reward yourself because you're basically, because to me, spoiling myself with that is basically saying, you're sacrificing things you want to do or eat and drink, all because, you got to let this heal, which isn't a big deal. It's not a big deal. And that's what's interesting too about, reading up online about what you can eat and drink sometimes, because they vary in different opinions. You know what I mean? I mean, for example, like, they basically say the same kind of stuff when it comes to, like, let's say you get your wisdom teeth pulled or whatever, or your tonsils taken out. They always say you got to avoid this and that for at least a week or two, or a couple of days, or a couple of weeks, or whatever. And to me, it's like, why don't you just tell people, why don't you just take the best advice, probably the top tier, most well-known advice, the more believable, truthful advice. Why don't you just, put that out there and let people know what is the best direction to go in? Because, to me, it's like people are saying, well, avoid this. Oh, no, you could do this, but also avoid this. Like with coffee here. I can drink coffee now, but depending on who you believe, either after 5 days, which was, of course, this past Saturday, because you got to go by the 24-hour time period. After 5 days, basically, they say you can get back to normal temperature coffee if you want to, but there are others that say, oh, avoid the hot liquid for at least 2 weeks, and then there are some that say, well, you can eat this kind of food and that kind of food if you like. But then you have others saying, oh, well, you might want to avoid, this food and that food and everything for at least a couple more weeks. When you have others saying, oh, you could do this, you could do that. And it's like, to me, make up your mind. It's like, to me, it's like, okay, am I good to drink hot coffee? Or this is iced down lukewarm coffee. Am I cool to drink, the option A or option B, And it's the same with eating. So to me, Google and Bing and all of them have to basically, in my opinion, come up with what is the more, they need to come up and pretty much categorize what is the more believable, more accepted, more, I guess you could say, truthful results and answers that people need when it comes to these kind of situations, and not, throw them for a loop. Because when you throw them for a loop, people don't know, what you're saying, or, what you're saying to be true or not. So yeah, it's been, like I said, an interesting week overall, recovering from the extraction and everything. Also, it's kind of been slow because, again, you're waiting. You want to try to get back into, a semi-routine, that's close to what you've had. But you just got to take your time, because within a few weeks, you're going to have to probably get the implants in. You're going to have to do this all over again for at least another, 5 days or so, or even longer, just so those can get integrated and go from there. But overall though, the week has not been too bad. I will say that the week's not been too bad. Readjusting and everything. I also have family as of right now out in the Midwest visiting, family as well, to see how they're doing and all that. And they had an interesting situation, because when they left, they got stuck overnight, at the airport in Texas, because of the storms, that went through that vicinity and everything. So yeah, but, they got there safe. They got to their destination safe. So thank God for that. But overall, outside of everything else, it's just been a interesting, slow week of recovery and all that. Good news, as far as being a Warriors fan, the Warriors, Golden State that is, won. They're moving on to the second round against Minnesota. So that was kind of cool to end the week on and everything yesterday. And, we'll just see, what happens from there with them when it comes to the Timberwolves. But like I said, it's just been one of those weeks to where basically you just gotta readjust your life, your lifestyle and everything, and how you live, and how you eat and drink when it comes to these kind of situations, because it's not something that you want to happen. I mean, I'm sure if we were in a perfect world, if God had us in that perfect world that He has planned for us, that even after having something like this, instantly we'd be back to what we're doing, just like that. But we're not in a perfect world, so what are you going to do? But overall, not a bad week of recovery. Just getting used to it, getting more adjusted. It does make you lose a little weight, because you're not, like I said, used to, you're not used to eating light and everything, because based on your situation. So overall though, it's this is the like I said, it's early. I do apologize. But like I said, overall, not a bad first week. The first week officially, 24-hour wise, will be over at around the 3 o'clock hour and the 4 o'clock and the 5 o'clock hour, basically between 3 and 5. The first week will be done, and we should be in the process of going into the second week and see where we go from there. But overall though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and, first of all, like I say, wish you guys a happy Cinco de Mayo and everything. I know a lot of you celebrated over the weekend because, it falls on a Monday and everything. And I'm sure some of you did call in because maybe you partied too much. No offense. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to wish you guys all a happy, Cinco de Mayo and all that. And just, let you know what's been going on over the past week and everything. As well as to, basically let you know what's to come. In fact, I will let you know right now that basically come next Monday, which will be the second week, the first 2 weeks, basically the second week of this whole recovery process. A long story short, that's going to be a bit of a change in plans. As I've told you before, it's basically going to be like what you deal with, because a lot of you that have followed my channel for a while know that it's going to be a situation to where basically, I'm going to have to readjust, because just like with, Christmas break, summer break, spring break, and all that, and even, holidays like Memorial Day and all that, basically I have to, I have to kind of readjust for that day, because because of my living situation. And it's one of those situations to where basically, yeah, I can do videos and everything, but I got to be up early, or I got to stay up late the night before to get you guys some content for for the Monday after Mother's Day and all that, because of situations that are beyond my control, but are understandably beyond my control, if you know what I mean. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here, give you a bit of an update of what's going on. Let me know what your thoughts are on what I've had to say. Let me know if you've gone through the whole bone graft tooth extraction deal, small or medium or whatever. Let me know what it did for you, like what it changed for you, eating wise, and all that in the in the coming weeks and months afterwards. Let me know. I'd love to hear from your thoughts on it. What did you do to adjust and everything? And really, what are your thoughts on Google just, giving all these different answers and not just sticking with the specific ones that are more like exact, truthful, and like, hey, here's the real deal. Here's what you got to do to take care of yourself. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys. And until next time, do all the things in the description. Follow me at Twitter at Twitter, aka X, at BW Roses, TikTok at BW Roses, Blue Sky at BW Roses. Also, you can follow me. Also, you can find me at all your favorite audio and video podcast affiliates like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Audible from Amazon, Overcast, Radio Public. Wherever there's a podcast, you will find mine there. I just added a new audio clip on there yesterday, where I talked about the Hell of a Boss news that came out of Level Up. So check that out. That's in audio form, if you will. And you can find it under Hell of a Boss if you want to. Just search that and you will find it. Also, guys, you could find me over at rumble.com at BW Roses. I got to put some more content up there in the near future, as well as at VENMO at BW Roses and at odyssey.com at BW Roses-5. You can also find me at patreon.com at BW Roses. I have a video on there talking about, under the $3 and $5 tier, talking about adult film star, Kira Reed, if you will. So check that out if you'd like. Be great if you can help support me there, as well as you get the $1 tip tier as well. All that finances as well, if you help me in that area, as well as Venmo and Cash App, would be greatly appreciated, because it will help me with the bill later on when it comes to this down the line. But guys, that's all I can say. Also check me out at my Teespring store. Purchasing stuff there, merchandise wise, helps me out as well financially in the near future. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are on what I've had to say, and until next time, I am out.